deal with that. The thought of working for 50 years to finally, like, I hate the cliche, but like escape the matrix, bro. That just wasn't for me. So I was like, fuck, I either make this work or nothing. I just go all in. And that was the only option for me.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Truth Talk podcast. Today I'm joined with Harry. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for the people who might not know who you are.
For sure. So firstly, I appreciate you letting me hop on, Alex. First podcast I've done. I'm really just I run an agency now who solely focusing on working with other agencies, right? So our whole idea is we come in, we reverse engineer the perfect agency into yours, and then we provide personal one-to-one coaching and mentorship to seven figures. That's like the high level, right? It took me a while to eventually land on SMA, right? I was one of these entrepreneurs. I was like 15, 16 years old, just jumping between 1,000 different business models. I tried Amazon FBA, I tried e-commerce, tried drop shipping, like everyone, right? Back then in early COVID. And I eventually made an investment into a course, right? It was one of like Meighan old courses back in 2021. And this was kind of like my sign, like, I'm gonna go all in. I invested a lot of money at the time into a course, and I was like, fuck, I need to make this work, bro. I am
Mhm.
not losing all of that money. And that was kind of like my entry in properly into business. I'd
Mhm.
previously, been like the entrepreneur, like Hustlers University, like learning drop shipping,
Yeah.
etc. through there. One of those. But then I eventually made the big investment. I was like, fuck, I'm just gonna make this work.
Why did you make the big investment? Was it just like the course and you just kind of stumbled upon it, or?
I got into my first 9 to 5 around the same time in which I was getting into business properly. And I was like, fuck, bro. Like the thought I was like 17, maybe 16. And I was like, fuck, bro. There's no way I'm gonna work a 9 to 5 the next 50 years of my life just to have some money then. I'm like, I cannot deal with that. The thought of working for 50 years to finally, like, I hate the cliche, but like escape the matrix, bro. That just wasn't for me. So I was like, fuck, I either make this work or nothing. I just go
Yeah.
all in. And that was the only option for me.
Yeah, cool. And how did you kind of stumble across, the model that you're currently doing? So like, I guess for the viewers, can you kind of break down, I mean, I know you talked about it a little bit earlier, but just kind of break down what you do and what, what is your business, your agency actually doing for other agencies?
For sure. So we'll start with the agency app today because this wasn't the first one I ran, right? I was another like kind of niche hopper, one of these.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm now working with agency owners. Typically what we do is we come in. It depends on the level the agency is at. But let's say we're talking with a beginner agency owner. We're going to come in, we're going to create them an irresistible offer. So like it's kind of like done for you, market research, create them the irresistible offer. We set up all of the acquisition systems, emails, DMs, cold calling, paid ads, whatever is going to work for the niche. We then build out their sales process as well, intro scripts, demo presentations, the whole lot. We then create their product from A to Z. So we do the market research again. How do we get client results? What's their service? We build out the product. We hire the team that's going to run that. We automate their agency as well. We set up all of their Zaps. We hire all of their VAs. So we automate the agency. And then we hire them a team of A players, whatever it is, media buyers, closers, whatever they need. And then we hop in personal one-to-one coaching and mentorship to scale to seven figures. So the whole idea is like the problems we solve the issue of not having enough leads. We solve the issue of having zero quality in your leads. We solve the issue of not closing enough deals. We solve the issue of not having enough time because you're spending it on manual tasks. We solve the issue of not being able to get client results. And ultimately, we solve the issue of scaling. And that's what it all comes down to. We wanted to create an agency in which solved all of the problems, not just an agency which gets you more leads.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how
And
that came about, bro. But it wasn't always like that. Like originally, when I first started working with agency owners, it was a case of like running their paid ads and running their cold emails and doing their IGDMs. It was like done for you appointment setting. You
yeah.
quickly realize how unscalable that is, though, bro. Like margins are low. You're spending so much time talking to clients, like it's just extremely unscalable. And that's why we moved into more of like this one-to-one, like done for you, then into a done by you model.
Mhm.
The full done for you all the way. It's just unscalable and your retention is just too low, bro.
Yeah. And did you start, I mean, how did you start? Did you do like free trials, like performance deals, or did you just straight up charge a retainer?
I mean, my first entry into this niche, I always ran the offer. I was like, your first 5 appointments free.
Hmm.
I wouldn't start with that again though. You get extremely like low quality clients.
Yeah.
Um, if I was to enter the niche again, bro, I would probably just start like it's extremely easy to get clients just doing like pay per results, right? Just pitching
Yeah.
like
Hmm.
really like when I moved away from the free model, it was like pay per results based. You only pay for the qualified and showed appointments you take. No deposits, no setup fees, no retainers. And that was no bullshit. Like I would actually do that and I would just get them to cover ad spend.
Yeah.
So that was like quite a good entry into the niche to learn how to actually do it. Eventually, as I became more confident and I was getting really good results, I would then like A/B close on the back end into a retainer, a
Yeah.
little bit like higher level sales tactics. But when I first started, it was just pay per results based. Yes, you would make like zero money, but you're learning. Free trial model is good, but you attract low tier clients. And that's my problem with it.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And how did you get into ads and sort of that thing? Was that like part of that course or what was like, because I assume, you had to learn media buying and that skill. Was that something that came along over time or how did that come about?
I'd spent a lot of time, a lot of money, and like my first sort of entry like into SMMA as a whole, I was working with solar businesses. Like that was my
Mhm.
first thing.
Yeah.
And we scaled that. Like we hit the kind of six-figure run rate. It worked, but we were unprofitable. We spent a lot of money on paid ads, but my first kind of entry, my first few clients was signed by paying a cold caller to do cold call.
Mm.
It was
Interesting.
absolutely horrendous, bro. Like we probably paid him about £1,000, maybe that's like $1,500 to sign our first client. Yes, we closed them
Wow.
for
Yeah.
$3,000, but we weren't thinking like that. We're like, holy shit, we've just made a $1,500 investment and only signed one client. In reality, we were profitable, but we ended up firing that guy. And that was kind of the problem we would have. We would get momentum, we would start scaling, we'd start signing clients, and then we would change something back to the start. And that's what I see a lot of like beginner agency owners doing. They get momentum, they start winning, and they change shit. And this is how we kind of stumbled across paid ads. We started winning, we changed shit, we launched paid ads. The reason we launched paid ads is kind of like similar to how everyone else I meet does it now as well. They scroll on their feeds, they see other people advertising, like, holy shit, I can do that too.
Yeah.
I mean, the sad reality with paid ads is you need to spend a shit ton of money to learn. Like, to learn, you're just losing money. We probably spent at least $5,000 on paid ads before we even signed our first client. And that's
Mm.
like just kind of the sad reality. We didn't know what to do
For your own agency or for other agencies?
for my own agency. So I've never typically been a massive fan of like client results, right? Client results is the most important thing. It's like a lot of people downplay it, but I've never been a massive fan of servicing clients. I'm much more I would say much more solid on the front end, put like recording B2B ads, doing sales, all of this kind of thing. That's why I've kind of moved to like outsourcing my weaknesses.
Yeah.
So we have media buyers in place who are running ads. We have a client success team who's doing client communication. And I think that's a big secret, bro, is outsource your weaknesses. Like you can never wear every single hat within your business. I meet a lot of agency owners on sales calls, and I'm like, for sure. So what does your team look like? And they're like, I don't have one. I'm doing the lead generation. I'm doing the appointment setting. I'm doing the sales. I'm running the client ads. I'm doing the client communication. I'm trying to focus on sales and do everything else in between. And I'm like, bro, there's no wonder you're saying you're stuck. You're wearing every single hat in your business. That's not a business, bro. You're just a glorified like contractor. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I mean, how did you kind of get into? Because when you're first starting, I feel like a lot of people do get in that trap, right? Where they feel like they have to do everything and they have to, you know, do the sales, do all this stuff that you're saying, right? Rather than just outsourcing it. How did you kind of get into outsourcing it? Did you start with a partner? Did you like like building out a team? Like how did that happen?
I've never ran an agency without a business partner before. And I always like had this kind of philosophy. I'm like, if I have a business partner, our hours double.
Yeah.
Yes, like your profits are gonna half, but you have double the hours in a day if you have a business partner. Um, I've always been better more with my face on stuff. That's why you'll see I'm focusing a lot on brand this year. My face is on all the YouTube videos. My face is on like all the Instagram content, everything. My face is on the B2B ads. I do all the sales calls. But
Yeah.
like my business partner, Josh, that guy is an absolute killer on the back end. Like he's in charge of all of our team. He's in charge of all of our appointments in and taking that off of my plate so I can focus on like inbound leads, bro, and closing more deals on demos. That has been like honestly our secret to success. Just like him in the back end. I couldn't have done it without him, bro. And I often say this to people, if you have someone you trust, get into business with them. There's such a massive learning curve, even in SMMA. It's not easy for a beginner, especially this far in. So if you can have a business partner, someone that focuses on one half and learning these skills, and you can focus on the other half and learn these skills, that's the secret to success.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, totally. And I guess how did you learn sales and that aspect of SMMA? Because that's a very something that a lot of people, sometimes look over, right? Because that's SMMA is sales, right? It's really important to learn that.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
100%. Sales is probably the most important aspect. I often talk about product first, like focus on increasing your client retention. Because I've kind of been in spots in the past, bro, where like my client results will be poor, and every single month it'd be a case of signing new clients, losing the entire client base, signing new
Mhm.
clients,
Just
losing the
churning
entire
them
client.
out.
Yeah, you get trapped. My retention was 1 month, and that was it. In terms of learning the skill of sales, like it's just like anything else, bro. It's just practice. You just need to get on calls and you need to treat it like I always compare it to sports. Like review your game tape, bro. I like you see when I joined this call, I had the Fathom note taker. That thing follows me everywhere, bro. I review all of my sales calls even to this day. That's
Mhm.
like the most like valuable thing you can do, as well as RP sales. At this point, I have a few reps who specifically are helping me out with like kind of the intro calls. I still like to hop on demos. Um, but these guys, like whenever a new sales rep joins the team, we do like 1 day, we'll just be talking about our mission, our why, our values, all of that stuff. And then we're straight into a week of RPs. If you can perform well in front of me, or in my case, like if I could perform well on a sales call, like if we were doing an RP sales call right now for YouTube and I could perform well, if I was to then hop on a demo call with just one prospect, that's way less daunting. If I can perform well on YouTube for an RP, or in another case, like if I'm doing it with my business partner, if I can perform well in front of someone that I see every single day, so if I embarrass myself, it's over. Hopping on a sales call is so much easier. So the two things I done was RPs daily, especially when I was starting out, because I understood how important sales was, and also just reviewing your game tape. Treat it
Yeah.
like a sport. Practice makes perfect. So just these two things, and it's just constant learning, bro. It's just constant learning.
Mhm. Awesome. And I guess with sales, do you have like, are you managing a sales team or is it just like people that you like kind of hire out and then like, I mean, I don't know how does your sales team kind of work? Is it?
Yeah. So sales process is split into two calls. Intro call, which is just like qualifying, finding a gap, etc., all that stuff in the intro. And then we have the demo call, which is where we close. I still do all of the demos, and we just have heavy qualification on the intro. We currently have two SDRs. They can take about 15 intros per day because they're only like each. because they're only 15 minutes. So that's suitable for our agency at the point we're at. We're currently doing about 350, 400 calls a month. So it's like it's easy to handle for those guys. And I just have them doing heavy qualification on the front end so that I'm only getting strong people on the back end. And it just means our demo, I can hop on and we're closing at least like 50% because we do such strong qualification on the front end. So
Mhm.
the sales team we have, I'm still involved on the back end to close deals. It's not something like we feel necessary to outsource yet because so much of our product is outsourced already. I have quite a lot of time. Sales team is just SDRs on the intro.
Mhm. Cool. And how, I mean, I assume, since you're working with other agencies, that there's going to be a ton of people who hear your offer and hear like, oh, I can get, more appointments. I get my whole thing outsourced. And then they hop on these calls. Is that the type of qualifying that you're trying to get rid of the people who are just looking for, maybe, 10 extra appointments or whatever it is?
The whole idea behind my service is almost like laying the foundations first. Like you'll hear me like whenever you talk to me, I talk about Alex Ramosi a lot. Like that guy's my fucking hero, bro. And um he always talks about laying your foundations. If you try and scale too quickly, it's almost like if you're building with blocks and you're just stacking them up like
I've
this.
seen the video.
Yeah, it's unreal, bro. That shit is just so easy to push down. Whereas if you stack them properly, like on top of each other, you have that strong foundation. And that is like the whole image behind our service. We come in, we reverse engineer the perfect agency so you have strong foundations that can last when you hit seven figures. And that's how we scale. Um, so to come back to your original question of what is a disqualification for us, a DQ is obviously you'll get the people who are looking for pay per close, all that kind of stuff. That's a DQ. But I would say a DQ is someone that's just looking for quick success. I want people who, like when I started this, especially nowadays when I'm trying to grow on YouTube, I've dedicated like, I don't give a shit if this takes a decade, bro, to
Yeah.
start fucking achieving ROI. If it takes a decade, fair enough. I've committed to it. I want people who are in the same boat. I want people that are going to stick, like, come to me and say, I don't give a shit if this takes a year. I'm going to stick to this niche for a year and just make it work. That's the perfect agency to us. That is the ideal client to me.
Yeah.
So anyone who is just looking for quick wins, quick success, people that aren't willing to put in effort, someone that expects us to do everything for them. That's not the kind of client we're looking for. We want killers, bro. People that are ready for the hard fucking journey because it ain't easy.
Yeah. And the reason I asked that is because, in the SMA space, there's a ton of people who just really don't know what they're doing and they're just, not to say that they don't want it, they just don't have the information to kind of put themselves in the right spots, right? They don't
Mhm.
know what to do. And I feel like you guys would get a ton of those people on those calls, and that would be like the main, I'm sure there's some people who can like maybe afford your service and can work with you, but there
Yep,
has to be a lot of qualifying for that.
for sure. The biggest problem, bro, is most people chase after strategy, right? They
Mhm.
want the best cold email script. They want the best paid ad script, which is gonna like, absolutely pop off for them and scale them to seven figures. But it
Yeah.
doesn't exist, bro. Like the best agency owners have learned how to think for themselves. The problem with the best strategy is it only lasts a month or two before it's saturated and we move on to something else.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
actual seven-figure agency owners that are killing it, they've learned to think for themselves. So it doesn't matter how strategy changes, they can always adapt because they've learned how to think foundationally. And that's the difference. If you look at, like, I always compare it on sales calls to people like Alex Ramosi and Iman Gadji. Do you think like Iman, for example, do you think he came into the SMA space, looked at other e-commerce agencies and was like, I wonder exactly what offer they're running. I wonder exactly how they're servicing clients. I wonder exactly how they're getting appointments. Let me just copy and paste every aspect. Alex, do you think he looked at other gym agencies and was like, I wonder how they're getting appointments. I wonder what their cold email script is. I'll just copy and paste it. Of course not, bro. They
Yeah.
failed and they learned to think. So it doesn't matter how the strategy adapted over time, because they've been in business a long time. There's been a million different strategies. They can always adapt because they know how to think.
Hmm. So are you on a retainer basis right now, or like a setup fee basis, or how does it sort of work for your, agency exactly?
So nowadays we do setup fee for the so like I said, we come in, reverse engineer the perfect agency.
Yeah.
That's a setup fee for that process. And then we have a really low retainer after that because it's just maintenance and just personal one-to-one coaching and mentorship. So it's like setup fee then into a low retainer.
Hmm. Okay, I see. So is it like and you do appointment setting for them as well, or is that just part of that initial setup fee that you do?
So we set up all of the systems. We teach them how to think. Like I'm saying, that's another big part. Teaching them how to think for themselves. And we set up all of the systems for them to begin with and tell them why we set them up like this. And then we hand over the reins and allow them to run them by themselves. The whole
Hmm.
idea is we set up everything and teach them how we done it and then provide them that one-to-one mentorship and coaching so they can always they're never actually stuck. The whole idea is teaching them how to think for themselves.
Yeah. Awesome. And with, the build out of a team and as you said, like, you have your sales team, you have, the back end team and everything. How has sort of managing all of that come to you? Like, is that something that you came across easily, that was easy to get a hold of, or was it difficult to sort of learn that skill, that leadership?
It's difficult at first. Like I think the secret is kind of just throwing yourself in the deep end. I learned a lot from books in this case. I would say at the point I'm at now, I wouldn't really contribute much of our success to books, to be honest with you. I would contribute most of it to failure. But when it comes to leading teams and culture, a lot of that has been learned from books and talking to others who already have strong cultures, as
Hmm.
well as just throwing ourselves in the deep end.
Yeah.
So there's one called High Performance. It's quite big here in the UK. That's a fantastic book for leadership and culture. There's also this book I read, I can't remember the name. It's about like Netflix and their culture and their business. Phenomenal book, again, for leadership and culture and these things. I've read these two books, which has really, really helped me crack this. And I also spoke to some other agency owners previously. I spoke to someone called Marquez Pizarro. He's got a really, really large team because of the service he offers. Everyone gets their own appointment setter, etc. And culture is massive for them because they have such a big team. And I've learned quite a lot from that guy and how he treats his team as well.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
Another thing, sorry to cut you off, bro, but another thing which I forgot to add there is me and my business partner, we both worked 9 to 5s. I
Mhm.
was in software engineering, which is like big for culture, like the agile process, all of this stuff is quite known for having strong cultures. And I think I learned a lot from there. Like I've had bad managers in the past. I know what it feels like to be in a bad team. I know what a bad manager looks like. So
Yeah.
almost being in bad experiences teaches you what the good looks like. What would I want to be treated like as an employee? That's how I aim to treat all of my staff.
Mm. So you think that experience has 100% helped you to become a better leader?
Oh, 100%, bro. 100%.
I see. Yeah. I mean, I've never heard of some of the books you were talking about, so definitely worth checking some of those out. So yeah. And in terms of like, I know you said that your business partner kind of took over the back end and you took over the front end. Was that something that you guys like initially going into it decided, or was that something that came about like you're like, okay, this is my skill set, that's your skill set, and over time you kind of just split your time?
We almost just fell into these roles. I was strong, like I felt more comfortable being on camera. I felt more comfortable talking to people, like on calls and doing sales and, recording content. And he felt more comfortable just being in the background, like just building out systems and leading teams. And he's always been good at that stuff. Um, I think it comes from the kind of 9 to 5 that he was in specifically. So he worked at a decent level within like we have this massive like car dealership range of car dealerships in the UK. It's like a massive brand. He worked there and he was at quite a decent level. So he had quite a lot of status in there. He almost fell into a role of leadership within there as well. And he's transferred these skills into where we are today. And
Hmm.
you can kind of see that he was never really in a sales like environment over there. He never really had to hop on cameras over there.
Yeah.
Whereas like as a software developer, when I done that, I only like for a little bit, I would be hopping on calls with stakeholders and users and all of these people. Like it's quite high pressure calls. You need to deliver stuff and there's a lot of pressure on you. You're hopping on calls explaining why shit didn't work, having these hard conversations. And I just got comfortable being uncomfortable. So hopping on camera and hopping on calls and shit like that was no challenge to me. And I think it just, again, it comes from those kind of situations we were in and we've transferred these skills over into business. And to answer your question, it just kind of happened organically. We fell
Hmm.
into these kind of roles. And then it was just a case of like, all right, I'll take this side, you take this side. You learn these skills, I'll learn these skills, and we'll transfer them over to each other. So we're both in the loop.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. I kind of want to take it back to, let's say, when you're 16, 17 years old, right? Let's imagine like a viewer or someone watching this, they want to get into the agency space. They want to start making money. They want to start their own business. What is the first thing, the first couple steps that you would take to start building your own agency? I know it's a big question to just kind of throw at you, but
Yeah, bro. Um, I kind of like the route I took, I wouldn't recommend people investing into gurus and shit like that these days, but having something, which means you're going to be all in. Like when I was doing drop shipping and all that shit, like I can barely say I was doing it because I barely committed to it, but I didn't really have any commitment. I hadn't made any big investments into courses. I was barely spending any money on my store, like $100 a month max. So I didn't really have any big commitment to really make this work. At that point, I hadn't really experienced 9 to 5s and shit like this, so I didn't know what the other side was like. If, for example, you have a bad 9 to 5, a bad manager, perfect. If you're in university and you hate it, perfect. You just need to have something there and which is going to make you go all in on business. Otherwise, it's too easy to quit. You need to have a dissatisfaction for your current situation, but something strong, which means you're not going to stay there. This is talking about in Tony Robbins' book, Awaken the Giant Within. And you can't quote me on exactly what he says. I read it a long time ago, but it was almost like if you're dissatisfied with your current situation enough, you'll always be motivated to go to the other side. If the dissatisfaction isn't strong enough with where you're currently at, you'll always stay there. It's why people stay in bad relationships. They don't hate it enough to change. The thought of change feels worse than staying in a bad relationship.
Yeah.
Same in business. The thought of staying where you're currently at doesn't feel as bad as the 5 years of absolute grind. You need to have something here in which is gonna like force you to push for the next 2, 3, 4 years to eventually make this work. Because it will not happen as quickly as you think. It's going to take much longer. All of this 10K per month in 3 months does not happen. It doesn't. It took
Yeah.
me at least a year of constant fucking grinding every single day. No weekends, no days off until I eventually hit $10,000 per month. And then you realize that really isn't a lot of money because of the expenses which it takes to get there.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, firstly, the first step I would take to getting into business is making sure that my dissatisfaction of where I'm currently at is strong enough. Then if we're talking agency model specifically, it would be picking a niche. I have a small checklist I run clients through. It's like they need to be doing at least $10,000 a month in profit. It needs to be something you give a shit about. I've made that mistake in the past, etc. But I would just pick a niche and commit to it for a year. It doesn't matter how shitty it is. It doesn't matter if you've went 10 months and still not signed a client, commit to it for at least a year before you even think about change. In terms of outreach, depends how budget is. I always recommend people start paid ads as quickly as possible. You might as well. You're going to lose money either way. So get paid ads running as quickly as possible. If not, a couple of different cold outreach methods. But just make sure you're consistent with them. The biggest mistakes I've made is disrespecting momentum. So when shit starts to work, just changing shit up. So disrespecting the popcorn effect and not being consistent enough. Shit takes longer than you think. You need to commit for a long, long time to eventually make it work. So never disrespect momentum and always stay consistent. So outreach wise, I don't like to talk about strategy. I like to instead talk about how to think. It doesn't really matter what you do. The seven-figure agencies that have scaled, they're doing every single outreach method under the sun. I know people that have scaled doing direct mail. So it really doesn't matter what you do. Just pick something that's going to work for your niche and stick to it. Sales, learning comes from failure. Hop in calls, start fucking failing, have terrible calls, review your progress, see how that can improve, and learn from others. And then client results fucking matters, bro. Don't listen to gurus that say Saka, focus on setting appointments, closing appointments. The only way to scale a business is by increasing your LTV and it's by closing more deals.
Yeah.
So having your clients stay for longer and closing more of them. That's how you grow. So sales matters and results matter, both. If
Okay.
that answers your question, bro.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. It's a good breakdown for people who, maybe want to get into it but don't know where to start, right? Um, the next thing I wanted to ask you is, I don't know if you've heard of like maybe the growth partner model, where it's kind of like, you have like, two, three, four clients, and it's like, you work with them and then scale to like big numbers just using like performance and working with them, alone in a small number of clients rather than like maybe the traditional agency way, which is like, 50 clients on $2,000 a month retainers, right? Like that sort of model. What are your thoughts on, either method, and what do you think is I guess the best way to scale?
I often say this to my business partner, and it's kind of relevant here. I would rather have 100 clients, which pay me $1,000 a month, than four clients, which pay me 25,000 a month.
Hmm.
The reason being, imagine you lose one of those four clients. You've just lost 25% of your business. Imagine you lose one of your 100 clients. You've lost 1% of your business. And
Hmm.
that's the difference. You can always build out a team to service more clients.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, I've seen agencies which service over 300 active clients and have no issues with it because they have teams in place to handle it. So I would always go for more clients over less just because you can sleep better at night, bro. You lose one of your four, you've lost a quarter of your business. You lose one of your 100, it's absolutely fine, bro.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, because a lot of people have been switching to like that, like growth partner role. I have a friend who currently is doing that, just like with like info products and personal brands, and he's been working on it just on performance and like a retainer, and that's worked really well for him. So it's
Yeah.
interesting to hear the different sides of how people do it, right?
I mean, everything works, bro. It's like
Mhm.
different business models. Every single vehicle works. It depends on the driver, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to do a growth partner model and have a wait list of clients you can bring in at any time, it works. So honestly, either works. I just have my preference because I've done it. I've not done the growth partner model, so I'm probably biased.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what part of UK do you live in, if you don't mind me asking?
I'm in Scotland.
In Scotland. Okay, I was trying to figure out the accent, but I not familiar enough with the accents to be able to tell you. But yeah. Yeah, I'm located in Houston, Texas, so that's why I was curious. But yeah, I mean,
How
have
do you
you
like it, bro?
repeat that?
How do you like it in Houston?
I mean, I've just been here since I was really, really little, so I don't I this is what I know, and I like it in Houston. I like Houston a lot, but I've always wanted to travel, so I think when I get older I kind of want to try like the travel, like being able to work from wherever and do that. That's kind of always been like a goal of mine, I feel like. So
For sure. Well, tell us about your agency, Alex. What are you doing, bro?
yeah, so I'm doing something very similar to what you're doing, except it's a little bit different in terms of like we barely started like a month or two ago. I'd say a month and a half ago, probably. And we basically just do cold calling and like appointment setting for other agencies and sometimes even small businesses. So I've partnered up with like a roofing company in the past, and it's mostly agency owners right now. But basically like completely on performance to start, like just getting results for people, like just okay, pay for this showed up appointment that's qualified, X amount of money. And like that's kind of how we've started because like you said, it's super easy to get clients like that. And it's just a good way to start to number one, get the results on the table. And then like
Yep.
once we get those results on the table, like okay, now maybe we can go into a retainer model, maybe we can go into something else. And right now it's been all through cold calling. So I mean, I wouldn't say I like to cold call, but I'm pretty good at cold calling. So I've been just doing that, and I have a team of I think we're 8 people now, and we're just hitting the dialer, and that's kind of how it's been growing right now. And yeah, I mean that's kind of the gist of it, the main overview of it.
Good, bro. I love it. I
Yeah,
mean, every outreach, like every manual outreach method sucks, bro. It just takes
yeah,
consistency. So it's like kind of like the same when it comes down to the business model you're in, like I just spoke about. Every single one works. It just depends on the driver. How consistent are you going to be? How dedicated are you going to be at getting better? That's what it takes. So that's awesome you're doing cold calling, bro, because that's probably the worst out of all of them.
yeah. I mean, we just do it because we're good at it, and it's like a skill set that we have. And sales, we're good at sales, so it's like okay, let's just take what we have and use it, right? Because in terms of paid ads and everything, it's something that I've really been looking to get into, but I don't know the best vehicle to like. I honestly, I just really have to get started and then go from there and just see where it takes me. Um, but I've also looked at other methods like SMS, and we're in talks with a partnership with a SMS software company that they're building out their SMS software. I don't know much about it. So that's why I mean I'm just interested in seeing like what the best way to scale it is because right now when I'm doing cold calls, realistically the only way to scale is to build out a large enough team to handle, all the clients. And that's just something that at the end of the day, it's like if I'm collecting the funds and then, they book an appointment and then I have to give it to them and it's like a lot of like handling of money. So I think the best way to scale it would be either to find another vehicle to get there, whether it is SMS, whether it is paid ads, what other vehicle it is to get there. But I still think it's important to maintain the cold call basis because again, we can book appointments and we know that we can. So maybe a combination of the both of them. But again, I'm not really sure what the long term. I mean, I know what the long term goal is, but I don't know what the vehicle to take me there is yet exactly. But
For
for right
sure,
now,
bro.
it's cold calls. So.
It comes back to what I was saying, just if it's working, don't change it, bro. It's like almost a momentum factor. If you're seeing results, don't change shit. I've made that mistake too many times. Um, there was something I wanted to say. Yeah, so in terms of scaling with like manual outreach, I've made this mistake in the past. This is just like a little bit of wisdom for people. But at one point in one of my agencies, I had 40 appointment setters. We
Hmm.
were doing Facebook outreach, IG outreach, cold calling. But the main like problem was, yes, I had this massive team in which I had to be paying. It wasn't even the profit margin side that was the issue. Like it just gets to a point where you just have so many low quality team members, it just brings down your entire team. We were hitting many agency owners like 5 times through different accounts because there was no communication because the team was too large. And you end up getting to a point where it just hurts your reputation and you just have one massive, terrible team. Because even just one rotten apple within the whole bunch, it ruins all of them. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
always like to scale. I always tell everyone to scale with paid ads because you can only scale so far when it comes to time. Every
Yeah,
manual outreach
that's the
method
problem.
requires time. Paid ads, as you scale, you'd literally just scale paid ads with capital.
Yeah,
Capital is scalable endlessly, time isn't. That's the issue. But
yeah.
I would stick to it, bro. If it's working, stick to it. And then when you have the funds, get paid ads run ASAP.
Yeah, and that's kind of my thought process is really similar to what you're saying because at the end of the day, I don't want to be trading time for money.
Nope.
And that's the main thing that I want to avoid. And right now, that's kind of what I'm doing in terms of just, okay, I do X amount of dials, I get X amount of booked appointments, I get X amount of money, right? At the end of the day, it all comes back to time. So, okay, how do we shorten that time? Okay, well, maybe we can do paid ads. Maybe we can do a software that does SMS for us. And then we only have to do X amount of calls, right? Just lowering that time that we put into it ourselves, right? That's sort of like the way that I see us scaling eventually. And right now, I guess, like you're saying, it would be just building up those funds to be able to be like, okay, look, now I have, a decent amount. Let's just throw this into this. And we might not see results for, a couple months or, even, 3, 4 months, right? But then when we do start seeing results, it's going to be worth it, right?
Sure.
And that's kind of the idea behind it. So.
Quick question for you, Alex. What's your LTV on a client? Do you know?
I mean, we've only been doing it for like a month and a half, and
All right, fair enough.
I'll run through what like we have right now. We started with one main. Well, I started doing DMs, right? And I quickly figured out that I do not want to do DMs because DMs is just a very I don't want to say simple. I guess it is pretty simple. I mean, it's just manually, just like typing the numbers and everything. And I felt like, okay, cold calls. I'm on the phone with these people. Like it's skill. Like there's a skill involved with it, right?
Mhm.
In terms of DMs, I just had like a team. I had started out building a team with like just friends, people I knew, and I was just like, this is not going to work. I just don't see the value that like the people that I'm working with aren't seeing the value. I'm not seeing the value. It's just not worth it, right? So I was like, okay, let's just do, cold calls. And with the first cold call client, we're still working with him. But to be honest, it's not a very good client. Just like he just doesn't have the funds to pay. So it's like we're only setting like a couple appointments a week because that's how much he can pay for. And I mean, I'm fine with that because it's a good starting point and we've gotten decent results. And then, I had another client and had, we actually booked him 14 appointments in 3 days. And he just like after we booked the appointments, he just, left us and we had sent him a contract and everything. And he had signed it and just like, literally disappeared on us and everything. So that was the main issue with that one. And we were disappointed, but we did get the results of 14 appointments in 3 days. So
Yeah,
that was the only upside of that. And then now we're working with two different, I would say, pretty high quality agencies, and we're happy to be working with them. At like we're doing like per performance, so like per showed up appointment for one of them, and then another one's on like a commission per close. But that close, if they close, it's recurring. So that's the main reason that I like that idea.
yeah,
But yeah, that's sort of where we are now in terms of like clients. And we've had like the two clients that we have right now that we're really dialed in on are like they're happy with the services for like from what they've told me, they're very happy and they want to go into a long-term partnership. So what I'm thinking of is like maybe for one of them going into like a retainer and just assigning like maybe two team members to him and just working on that and then having, more focus on the other client, building it out from there.
for sure. The big reason I asked about LTV, Alex, is when it comes to paid ads, I always tell people it's going to take a lot to finally get it to work. So I always tell people be able to commit as like whatever your LTV of a client is. Let's say a client is worth $5,000 to the average client,
Mhm.
willing to spend at least $5,000 to acquire each client to begin with,
Mhm.
because that means you're going to break even on the average case. So that's the reason I ask LTV. I would wait until you understand what your LTV is and you have some figures, and then get your paid ads launched. If every client is worth $3,000 to you, be willing to spend at least $3,000 on ads to acquire a client because that's break even.
And
And
And let me ask you this. So I'm in contact with many people who, do paid ads or that sort of thing. And is it worth it to maybe hop on a call with somebody and just try to like understand what they're doing, or is it just worth it for me to just throw something and kind of figure out like on my own?
it's worth, I would say it's worth talking to people. There is a strategy to it that works, but I like to always teach people the frameworks, bro. I'm happy to teach you how it works, bro.
Mhm.
It's cool.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. off video, and I'll tell you
Yeah.
my kind of frameworks. I mean, I've already spoke about it a lot, and I've made YouTube videos on literally how you do paid ads. So
Yeah.
if anyone is struggling to get paid ads to work, it's your fault. I've literally put everything on YouTube, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I understand the basics of it. I just want to see like the maybe just the behind the scenes on how people are running it and how it like just to kind of get like maybe like a one-to-one call and like, okay, here's how you do it. Here's like this is how I'm doing it, and not necessarily the strategy. I just want to see like what the thought process is behind putting ads because I've seen people putting creatives out there with literally just words on it and they're getting like really good results. And it depends on, obviously like for my end, not knowing too much about paid ads. Obviously, I understand how they work. I can set up a Facebook ad campaign. I've done all that before. But just understanding like, okay, what copy, what creative, what's the best way to do this? That's like where I haven't figured out yet, right? Um, but again, I think that's something that takes time and maybe further down the line, as I said, which is, what we're talking about here, that's something that I do want to get into.
I mean, I would say at least 90% of outreach, whether it be inbound or outbound, comes down to your offer.
Mhm.
But a big misconception people have is that they think that the offer is what closes the deal. You close deals by being a good closer. You don't
Yeah.
close deals by having a good offer. Because, like, picture it like this, right? Imagine you and Jordan Belfort were talking to the exact same prospect. You had an amazing offer. Jordan Belfort had an average offer. Who do you think is closing the deal? Jordan Belfort's closing that every single day. And that should tell you all you need to know that the offer does not matter when you hop on that sales call.
Hmm.
An amazing quote I had from one of my mentors back in the day was the deal is closed in the conversation.
Yeah.
Your pitch won't save you. So it doesn't matter if you have the greatest pitch on earth, like with the greatest offer ever. If you've had a terrible conversation with someone, if you've not went deep on discovery, if you've not built strong rapport, they're never buying from you. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So focus on having a strong discovery instead of focusing on having a strong offer. Your offer schedules appointments, but you as a closer closes deals.
Do you know Jeremy Miner?
The name rings a bell.
He like he's a sales coach, sales mentor, really. I mean, in terms of like sales coaches, I don't know that many that are like that much bigger than him. But
Mhm.
he's super good, and we model a lot of our stuff off of his sales and sales tactic. And I mean, at the end of the day, he is like completely based on like selling based on emotion. So he does NEPQ closing. It's called neuro emotional persuasive questioning. And like for those of you watching the video now, you guys need to go check out Jeremy Miner because that's how I learned sales and just like watching his stuff and learning from him. So that's kind of who I model most of my sales off of, and it's less, like you're saying, less offer based and a little bit more emotional based, right? Um, and yeah, that's one thing I want to point out.
Agreed, bro. I kind of think that when it comes to B2B sales in this space, it's almost like emotional logic is how I kind of break it down. Like you need to get them emotionally in discovery, and then on the back end in your pitch, it's just a case of increasing the likelihood of achievement.
Yeah,
Have like some system proof, have a decent system in place, and that will get the deal across the line. That's your logic side, but like 80% of it comes down to the emotion and the discovery. And that's it.
yeah, and I mean, his big thing, Jeremy Miner's big thing is you find the problem and you begin to build the gap between the problem down here and where you could take them. Like, let's say they're doing like 10 appointments a month. Okay, now I want 20 appointments. Oh, and are they qualified? Oh, are they, you know what I mean? And you just keep building that gap between where they
Yes.
want to be and what you can sort of bring them, right? Or I mean, where they are now and where you can bring them, right? That's kind of his whole method for kind of getting it. And obviously, there's a lot more into it and like handling objections and all that stuff that he's pretty good at. But it's really emotionally based. And you kind of start to build because people buy on emotion for the most part. Obviously, like
Mhm.
logically, like you can tell them, look, put $2,000 down, I'll make you $10,000. The likelihood of them buying if they don't trust you and you don't have rapport is just not it's not gonna happen, right? So
Agreed.
it's it's really interesting and definitely worth looking up and checking out because that's what we model most of our cold calls and sales calls off of, and we've had pretty good success with that. So
Yeah, that's the sauce, bro. Especially what you're talking about with the gap. There's one question I like in terms of my intro, right? There's one question in which I think has really like changed the game for us. I'll talk about that in a minute, but in terms of the purpose of the intro, literally what you said, find a gap. So make sure they have a gap, get them in the buying mindset. So get them to admit that now is the perfect time to buy and make sure they have a budget, bro. That is literally
yeah,
what our intro looks like. Is there a gap? Are they in the buying mindset? Is now the right time to buy? And do they have a budget? And then, like, the first question I have in terms of discovery when they hop on my demo is, what does the perfect acquisition partner look like to you? They then give me a checklist of everything I need to do to close that deal. They're going to say, the perfect acquisition partner looks like this. They do this. They have this. And I know, all right, this is exactly what I'm going to be pitching.
yeah,
Because I already know with our product, like how much we have innovated based on our product. We answer every single like solution. It doesn't matter what they say, we do it. So when it comes to that pitch, that's just what I'm focusing on. Yes, we do this, we do this, we do this, and we also do some of this other stuff as well. But this is the main thing. And that's
yeah,
like a big misconception when it comes to the pitch. Like you'll see agencies and they have this one demo presentation. They pull it up, they run through it for every single prospect which hops on a call. Your pitch should be personalized every single call. Your pitch should be different every single call because every single person has different needs, different pain points, everything in between. So I always like to talk about kind of like personalizing your pitch.
yeah. And
Like
and oh, go ahead. You can finish your thought.
I always like to say, like, just base your pitch based on what you have found on discovery. And that's why I always say discovery is like 80% of the heavy lifting because you get the information here and this is what you pitch on. No discovery, no pitch.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And with, what I'm saying in that gap and building that gap, it's
Mhm.
first finding the gap, right? Because, there's so many different things that you can, let's just say for, an SMMA, you know, owner, right? What are some pain points, right? And you can throw out so many things, right? Oh, we need more appointments. Okay, we need more. I'm spending too much time running something else. Okay, that's another. Okay, are they qualified? Oh, they're not qualified. Okay, that's another one. And you can just go down the list, and there's so many pain points to look at. And at the end of the day, you just have to position yourself as the solution to those problems. And it's not really, a lot of, and originally when I did get into SMA and everything, like I would go on a call, I would like pull up my pitch deck and run through it and like, oh, we have this offer and package one and package two. It's like they don't care. It's like, okay, what do I need, right? Like this is it might fit them, right? It's like you're kind of like throwing a dart, right? Like there's a chance it might hit, right? But if you position yourself as like, okay, look, here's my problem. I'm not getting enough appointments. Okay, well, look, I can help you reach this amount of appointments in XYZ time with XYZ system. And you don't even have to tell them about the system because at the end of the day, they just want that end result. And that's what you pitch them on, right? So that's kind of the sales sauce for the podcast. But yeah, that's kind of how we do it is we model our entire pitch on their problem, right? It's a partnership and less of like a agency, sort of the angle that we take.
Agreed. And that's how you close an SMA in 2024.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
That's all people need to know. As long as you're modeling your pitch based on what you find on discovery and you actually have a good discovery, you're closing deals. That's it.
And it's about asking the right questions for the
Hmm.
prospect themselves to admit to themselves that they do have said problem or that they do need this service, right? So like in Jeremy Minor stuff, and I'm kind of running through a lot of what he talks about, but I mean it's good stuff. So, you figure out first the problem, right? Problem awareness. You figure out, okay, maybe it's or first would be situational awareness, and you've kind of figure out like where they are, and then okay, what in this situation that they're in is a problem, right? And it's about asking the right questions to cue them to say that. So if you're asking them, you know, I mean, I don't know what a good example is, but if you get them to admit that that is a problem, then they're basically telling it to themselves, right? And there's different strategies that you can use to get the prospect themselves to admit that they have a problem and that you can be the solution to that problem.
Of course, bro. I love it.
Yeah. Um, So we've been on the podcast for I think around 50 minutes now. So I mean, I'm thinking about wrapping it up. Is there anything else you kind of want to tell the audience before we, hop off the podcast?
Some like final sauce. I would say the biggest mistake people make is disrespecting momentum and not being consistent enough. If I have to leave you with anything, guys, it's just commit to something for a very fucking long time because this is going to take much longer than you think. And
Mhm.
when shit starts to work, don't change what's working, no matter what desires come or what shiny object syndrome puts in front of you. Stick to the momentum because it's working. Do not fix problems which are not actually problems. That's it.
Okay. Yeah, good sauce to end it off. All right, thank you so much for coming on, Harry. And we'll see you guys in the next edition of the True Talk podcast.